Hello, friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Dark Side of the Word. I am here with my co-host CJ.
Hey, everybody.
And this episode is normally our current events podcast, but CJ and I wanted to do something a little bit different for all of you. Since we're both in the query trenches and we have talked about our woes of the query rejections and emails and all of the submission process and everything, I wanted to share with everyone some of the research I stumbled across when I rewrote my query letter. If you don't remember from our writing update earlier this month, you can go back and listen to that episode. But I talked about how I finally listened to CJ and I decided to rewrite my query letter because, I know. She's going to hold this over my head.
It's for the good of your story.
I know. Well, I decided to rewrite the query letter, but before I did so, I ended up doing some research on what the rejections I've gotten so far can mean. And in doing the research, I actually found out that there are 3 types of rejections, and yes, even though CJ and I have bemoaned and bemoaned about the fact that we don't get any insight back from these agents that we query, the type of rejections we're getting actually are telling us something. And I have to say, I wish I actually knew some of these before I began querying, because I would have made a few changes before querying over 50 agents already. And I would also realize that sometimes you are supposed to thank the agent. And I didn't realize that. And so now I feel like I gave everyone the middle finger and I did not appreciate their time. And so now I hang my head in shame. So, to make sure that all y'all don't go through the same shit we did, I thought we would talk about this. What do you think?
I think it's a good idea.
I do too.
I think it's going to be helpful because even though I have gotten requests from a manuscript, I'm still getting many a rejection to my query. And some of them are lengthier than others, and some are just very standard and rote. So I would really love to know what that means.
And this isn't just for people who haven't queried yet. If you're in your query trenches and you need to understand what you're being told, this is great. And I think, CJ, you're going to find some insight from what I'm going to tell you too.
Definitely.
All right. So, what do I want to say?
Stuff to people about querying.
Exactly.
And agents. I'm so helpful. You're welcome.
This is the one time I actually made notes before coming on here, and now I'm just looking at my notes going, what the fuck did I write down?
And this is the first time I do not have any notes. I'm just totally flying blind off the seat, by the seat of my pants. I can't even talk. I'm just so discombobulated about it, not having notes in front of me. Oh, Kait, okay. Please take over.
I've got it now. Thank you for sidetracking for me so I can gather my thoughts.
I saw the panic look in your eye.
We're keeping it real, listeners. You wanted real. You wanted behind the scenes. You wanted to know we're human. This is it. We're not AI. We are human, which means I lost where I was in my notes, but I have them back. So the number one thing that you should know when querying is that the more personal their response is to you about your book, the closer you are to getting published. And some people in the industry believe that if they send you a rejection that says, do you have any other work that I can see, or a revise and resend, actually does mean that you are semi-professional.
That's good to know.
Exactly. So that's really exciting. I do believe it was Brandon Sanderson, either it was him or one of his author friends who were talking to agents, and they were like, oh, you're semi-professional because you want this. It was generally known that this person was going to be published soon. It was just what was going to get him published.
Okay. So, interesting.
All right. So generally there are 3 kinds of feedback for everyone. There is the dreaded kind of form rejection, the semi-personal rejection, and the very detailed feedback. And this has nothing to do with full requests and the rejections coming after someone has requested your full manuscript. We're not going to talk about that here. Sorry, CJ.
That's okay.
These are for the rejections that essentially you're not giving them a lot of your work. Okay. So we're going to go with the first one, which is the regular form rejection that I know so many of you gotten. I hate to say this, but this is mostly what I've gotten. And like I said, I wish I knew this because I was being told something. And now I feel ashamed. But anyway, form rejection is the worst. It's along the lines of thank you for submitting, but you're not the right fit for us. Good luck in your career journey. I know that this is subjective, but keep going. It's something along those lines. I know we all know what I'm talking about.
I hate the subjective part.
Exactly.
That's just like the word. I see in every single query, rejection. We all know that, and it just pisses me off every time.
Well, this is what it actually means. There are about 5 different things that it can mean. 1, something is fundamentally missing or wrong in your pitch or subsequent pages that you're sending. 2, the submission guidelines weren't followed. 3, the agent is very busy or the book didn't fit their desired list. 3, the concept is something that they've seen too much of recently. Think Prince Fighting Dragon. If they see too much of those in a row, you could just be the 10th Prince Fighting Dragon story that they've seen and they just don't want to do it again. Or the worst case, the book is far from being ready to publish, and this is the nicest way they can reject you. But remember, I am saying all this to also point out that it does not mean that your story is bad. If you notice, quite a few of those bullet points that I said had nothing to do with your actual work.
Yeah.
Like the submission guidelines were followed, the agent is too busy, or you're just telling the same story that's being told a lot right now. Like none of that has anything to do with your quality and you as an artist. So don't forget that. But I think we can take a lot from this.
Yes, and it's so easy to just take everything personally, even when it's just a form rejection, because you're immediately thinking, oh my God, I suck, I'm horrible, they don't want me, they're never going to want me. But again, like if you just made an error in writing the agent's name or not including comp titles or not including your word count, that's not following the submission guidelines. That can just be an easy out, for an agent to just X you, and it has nothing to do with you as a writer. Maybe as a person with their attention to detail, but not as a writer.
This was very hard for me to hear because, like I said, I have gone mostly form rejections or no rejection at all, which sometimes, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Did they even open the basically fucking email? Yeah, did they even open the fucking email? But
no.
I was looking at this list for myself, and I think I was able to narrow it down to the problem of the 5 for me personally and my rejections. 1, I don't think that my concept has been seen recently. Because I think CJ can attest that. It's a very out there storyline around time travel that deals with immigration as well as climate and a lot of things. Especially with seeing the trend right now of it being gods. That is the trend in the industry. And then just in general of what I see people normally write when they write in either fantasy or sci-fi, this is out there and different. Maybe it's too different. That could also be the problem.
Yeah, that seems
the
to be a problem.
The other thing I don't think I have the problem with is the submission guidelines. I would like to say that I am anal to the T. Like, you talk about misspelling a person's name, I probably check it 20 times.
Yeah,
and I reread the guidelines like a bazillion trillion times. There was only one time that I can directly say that I did not follow the submission guidelines. They wanted a 4-page synopsis, and I was like, fuck you, you're getting my 2-page one, because I'm not going to just, for one agent, rewrite an entire synopsis. This is too much. So it's like the only time I didn't listen.
My synopses are usually 3 to 4 pages because I'm a long-winded person, so I'm just like, what's the problem with that? But yes, if you're normal, then yeah, 2 pages is about right.
Yeah. So that was like the only time that I can directly point to not following someone's. The fit could be possibly a problem for me because I will say that CJ has worked with me on this. It's been a struggle finding the fit for my book.
In terms of genre?
Yeah, just how we would, like, who would we query? Is it speculative fiction up? Is it really hard sci-fi? Do we have a little bit of a slash horror to it? Yeah. Where do we do this? So I can see that being the problem. So ultimately, I took this response very personally, and to something is wrong with my pitch. That was soul crushing because now I'm on the dregs of the agent list, and I'm sitting here going, fuck. I already queried my agents that I want. I have about 2 agents that I would be obsessed to work with because I see how they work with their authors and the way that they handle them. Because of my trauma background, I like how they handle their agents. And I actually met one of them in person because they were traveling with the author. And so I got to meet her with the author. I was like, damn it. So now I'm just like, how much did I fuck this up?
I don't think you fucked it up at all. I mean, in terms of getting that book represented by that agent. I mean, obviously it's not happening. But when you said that you've, fucked yourself over, in publishing, it's not true. You are going to be writing more books, and they're not going to be looking at your query from, 3 years ago when you're querying your next novel, because it's a whole new reset. So they might even remember you as querying before and saying, oh, look at her. She's a prolific writer. This isn't just a one-off. She wants a career as a writer. So even though we didn't like her story or her pitch or whatever it was the first time, we can give her a shot this time and with whole new eyes.
Yes. So I'm trying to keep, my hope going. But I thought this was very important because if you're like me and you've gotten a bunch of these rejections, then I do think that even though we were complaining our asses off in a previous podcast about it, we were actually getting feedback.
Yes.
I'm assuming you also have gotten a few of these sprinkled in with all your myriad.
I've gotten a lot of
plethora.
These.
Okay.
I have gotten a lot with this book and with my previous 2 books that I queried. This is my 3rd time in the query trenches, so I have gotten probably 150 of these types of forum rejections, and it's so crushing each and every time. But looking at all the factors that it could be based on what you said, I think for me, depending on what book it is, it's definitely not the fact that I didn't follow the guidelines, because like you, I am anal retentive about following guidelines. So I made sure everything, crossed my T's, dotted the I's, everything was fine. So I think it comes down to my ideas. In fact, I know it comes down to my ideas either not being unique enough or being too unique, or my story just not being what the agent is looking for at this time. My last novel was women's fiction, and it was a much more generic women's fiction than my current project. It was about a woman who opens up, or she goes to work at a bakery, basically. And the feedback I got from agents was, oh, it's very nice, but it's not going to stand out in a competitive market. So that's what was doing. And I got that after doing full submissions, not after the query. But I'm very sure that is why my queries were getting rejected early on, because it was just an oversaturated market.
You're making great points about all of that, because I want to, again, reiterate to our listeners, at the same time right now that you're querying, you are getting, I want to say 9, last time we talked, full requests.
Yes.
But you're also still getting these form rejection letters at the same time. So remember, again, it's not always about you. We can gain a lot of insight. So what I'm saying is, if you're getting all of these form rejections, you haven't gotten a single for request or one of the other 2 rejections I'm going to show you, that's a time, it's just a check-in with the things I mentioned to make sure that you're not hitting those bumps. Okay, we just want to check in with yourself. Maybe hire a professional query letter writer to have them review your query letter real quick. Make sure you're really watching the submission guideline. For me personally, I think my biggest problem to not getting published right now is maybe I am too unique and there isn't a market for my stuff, because that is the one really sad downside of querying, is that they tend to buy what's already out in the world, which really sucks, because I'm not that kind of writer. I go for what's not there because I specifically don't want to be copying anyone. And that was the other thing about my query letter, is I didn't have comps. And I really am learning now how important they are, because I, one, didn't want to be seen as another book that already exists, but also because I didn't find my book on the shelf at all because it was so different. Yeah. But we worked about that. We worked about that. And we found things that could work. And it's another note I want to make to our listeners, which is the fact that, I hate this too, because why the hell are we paying agents then? But you have to have your marketing figured out before you query. I would say my biggest takeaway from the whole query process in general is I needed to know the marketing of my book before I wrote it. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but I have learned you got to have your pitch before you write that book, honey. You got to know what you're doing before you do it. It sucks. It sucks that we have to think about the monetary approach of our books, but we do. And I think that I didn't have any of that with this book, and it kind of fucked me over, and I'm seeing that now. I'm really seeing that when I have to write the pitch, when I have to find the comp titles, when I have to know what my marketing is going to be. And as you can see, I'm not getting requests for my book. And I think that's directly related to the fact that I don't have my marketing figured out before I started.
It could be. But I do think your book is really unique. And, we're told we need to have unique ideas. I was told in my last book, you need to have a more unique idea. So now I'm pitching a more unique idea. And people are saying, oh, it's too unique. So It's impossible to figure out what these people want. The best you can do is just try to follow their guidelines, pigeonhole your book to where you think it should be, have good comp titles, and just try your best. But you shouldn't just be writing also to a market. You should be writing the book that you love and the story that you want to tell. You have to figure out how to market it and how to present it to an agent with a marketing, not a plan, but an idea of where it would fall, like in a Barnes and Noble shelf. But you still should be writing something that you believe in and that you really want to tell.
Agreed. So moving on, we will go to our second type of rejection, and this is the semi-personal rejection. So the good news is, if you get one of these, you're getting closer to the publishing end goal. But what I didn't realize, and I feel horrible about, is that you should send a quick thank you to these types. And I actually did get one of these. I'm so proud of it. I will not forget what she said. She essentially said she loved my story idea, but she didn't like my writing style.
Yeah.
Which is very funny, because if you're getting a lot of semi-personal ones where they give you like feedback, it's not going to be really detailed, but if they give you feedback, say that 5 semi-personal rejections give you the same feedback that they hate the first character's name. Totally random. I'm just throwing this out here. It would be easy for you just to change the first person's name, lead person, protagonist. It's easy because you can do that. Now, if someone's saying that they don't like my tone in my writing, I'm not fucking going to change.
No, there's nothing you can do about that. But it means that agent isn't the agent for you. They do not have the vision for your book, the vision for your life as a writer, and therefore it would not be a good match. So it's better that you both move along.
That comes to 2 points. One being your writing style, that's your artistic flair to your work. So don't lose that. 2, if you're getting a lot of the same feedback, think about it for a minute. You don't have to accept it. You have to stay true to what your gut is telling you about your writing. But if you're getting the same thing, like they don't like the name for some reason, it's a moment to think, I'm getting this common feedback. Is it something that I need to change? No, but again, don't forget, writing is subjective. Well, one person could think is a slow burn. Another could think is the quickest book that they've ever read. So again, just make sure you stay true to yourself. Also, one of the other points I wrote down in my notes, which I already just said, sorry, friends. This is us being human again. But one of the things I did want to say too is, even if you can't change, I'm not going to change my tone in my writing because that's who I am as an artist. But if there's big changes, such as massive manuscript changes that you just can't revise before you send out to your next agent or set of queries that you're doing, it's something just to, if you want to, keep in the back of your head when you're writing your next book. So maybe it's a pitfall that you don't fall into with your next book, because here's some free advice from industry,
And I think something to be mindful of too is make sure that your writing style generally matches the genre that you're writing in. Like, Kait, I don't think this applies to you at all, but say you're writing a rom-com, and your tone is just dry and boring and kind of stodgy, and it doesn't have a lot of calm as part of the rom-com. If you're not writing in a style that people expect rom-coms to be written in, they may love your story premise, but they're not going to like your style. So make sure what you're writing matches the genre that you're writing for.
Exactly. You rom-coms are very personal. Mm-hmm. I prefer them to be written in first person, because I just like that very personal.
I do too.
Close to the chest, you're my best friend looking over my shoulder as I'm going through all this craziness that a rom-com holds. It's not like you wrote, what was it? I believe Rory Thorne Destroys the Universe. I forget what it is. It's a really great 2-book duology sci-fi, not for you, CJ. Okay. But it has more of that stodgy writing, but it goes so well with the plot and the characters and what it's about. So it works, but it would never work in a rom-com, like you said. Yeah. Same as literary fiction, tone of voice, omnipotent, right? Is that
omnipotent?
Omnipotent, the second person.
Oh, omniscient?
Omniscient, thank you. And second person writing probably wouldn't work in a rom-com, but it worked for Book Thief. So that's the thing. Keep your artistic thought, but think about, is the third person the correct thing for your genre? Is first person the correct thing for your genre? That's very important.
Yeah, and for you too. Like I am more comfortable writing in first person than in third person. I've attempted some things in third person, but it comes out forced for me. I'm much better with the first person. So if I'm trying to write something that I really want to sell, my best work is most likely going to come writing in first person. Trying to, if an agent came to me and said, I really love your book, I love your story, but I want you to write this in third person, that could be a potential deal breaker for me because I don't know if I could do it well enough and still be true to myself and get the whole point of the book across. So it's something to think about too, how much you're willing to bend when you get feedback about what they don't like about your writing style or your story or whatever it is you're trying to do.
Exactly. I need to take a moment here. I feel like I need to defend myself for a minute.
Why? I said that didn't apply to you.
I know, but I feel like I need to give examples for our listeners so they know
Examples of
what we're
what?
talking about. Like the writing style.
Your
It's like,
writing style.
yeah, like it's like Gallant and Divine Rivals writing style. It's good. We're not just fooling ourselves here. I just want to make sure our listeners know I'm not just like lying to myself. Like you're not just feeding in my psychosis that I'm a good
No,
writer.
I'm not.
It's
I'm
weird.
definitely not.
My writing style is weird in the sense that it's not common yet. That we are not seeing it everywhere on the bookshelf, but it's starting to come out a lot more. I don't know how else to say that.
Your style is a little bit more stark, a little bit more direct. It's definitely more active voice. I'm a big passive voice person. You're definitely an active voice person.
Oh my God, I can't believe you just said that because, sorry.
What?
That's a whole
What?
other thing. Because the amount of times I've been dogged for being passive voice.
Well, congratulations. You have jumped over that hurdle, my friend. I have yet to even get near it.
The number one comment I've gotten from, number one, I would say the comment I've gotten from every single person who's ever read one of my books is they said it reads like a movie.
Yeah.
Every
Because
person
you're
has
good
pretty
at
much
writing
said that.
screenplays.
Thank you. All right, I feel bad. I just had to I don't want our listeners to think that I'm living in a psychosis of my own.
I'm pretty sure they don't think you're living in some kind of psychotic bubble about, delusions of your own grandeur, legend in your own mind. You are a good writer. You have really good story, and I love your writing style. And you write in a style I usually don't read, but I love it, and other people are going to love it too.
Don't tell me that. You're going to scare me that no one else will
Why?
read it. Because you said you don't really read it.
Well, that's because I just don't read fantasy or sci-fi.
Okay, that's true.
We know this
You don't.
about me. We talk about this all the time. Woman,
Yes.
next point. Go. We're dwelling too
fine.
much.
Fine. All
Chop,
right.
chop.
The final form of rejection is the detailed feedback. This one, you 100% have to send a thank you note. Like
Yes.
100%. Just really quick, just thank you so much for your feedback. Blah, 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 whatever. This level also sometimes asks for a revision and resend. Then if a agent is asking for a revision and resend, a lot of people in the research that I was performing said it might be a good time to actually get professional help. Because there are a couple of different ways to take this. One, if the revisions you can agree with, then you want to do the best goddamn job you can doing this, because even
Yes.
though they're not required to accept, there's no, you have no idea if they will actually accept the book after your rewrites. You want to put your best fucking foot forward. Like, this is your closest chance you've ever gotten, okay? So you want to do your best. However, this comes back to the point that I feel like you and I have just hammered away at. If you can't agree with the revisions, say someone asked you to rewrite it into third person, that's just not who you are as an artist, then you really got to question if this is the right agent for you.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth, don't sell your soul, friends. No, this is not the point. You are an artist. Do not take your artist trait out of this, okay? You have the final say on whatever fucking thing it is you're making, because it is your art. Okay, I'm giving CJ tons of faces. I'm yelling at her through the screen. Sorry.
I feel like a scolded child. I'm just going to go sit in the corner in the fetal position. Don't mind me if you hear silence from my end.
You really got to protect your art, and the relationship with you and your agent is so vital, because the relationships I see with some of the most successful authors are when the agent is literally their best friend in the workplace, because this person is not just your stepping stone to finally getting in contact with a publishing house. This person has to advocate for you. This person has to be the one to, do this hard work and pitch you to the houses. They have to have your back. They have to be in love with the story as much as you are. Okay, you can't just accept anyone. I've heard horror stories of people like dropping their agents because it did not work out and it was not a good relationship. And so this is where you really have to make sure, not only do you get along with the person who's willing to represent you, but do they know your art and who you are and your style, and will they back you no matter what? Because if you think about it, in the future, when you pitch them more books, because you're now published, you have to get them to still love your next book. You're not guaranteed this agent with every book. So you have to make sure that, one, they will go on the journey with you. So say, if you are writing YA right now, but in the future you also want to write adult, you have to make sure that they do both. Don't forget that.
Or be prepared to start querying again in case they don't. Don't necessarily write an agent off because they don't represent every genre you might want to write in.
Correct.
But keep it in mind for future.
But you also want to make sure that if this is a woman's fic book, like you're writing your next, like the one you're querying right now, but the next book you have is a little darker, you want to make sure that they can take that dark tone with you. You want to make sure you have growth with this person as well. So this is all mine. So, and like I said earlier, if you get a detailed feedback, that is also considered that you're semi-published and that you are almost there, friends.
What do you mean by semi-published? Because I have not heard that term before, and I feel like there's no semi-published. Honestly, there's just published or not published.
It just means that you're pretty much almost there, like you're gonna get accepted. This was talked about at a writing conference. This is how they view it. They view it as you're just not first out of the gate querying and doing all this, and that people are actually looking at you and seriously considering you, and that they're just waiting for the right work from you. Like, you will get published. Like I said, it was something I heard from Brandon Sanderson and his writing group. So it came from a reliable source.
Okay. I mean, that's definitely comforting to know if you're getting that kind of detailed feedback. And I think it tracks because agents are so busy, as we've talked about before. They're not going to take the time to write a personal reply unless they really feel they could possibly be establishing a connection later on.
Because what I don't think people remember sometimes of all of this is that an agent doesn't make money unless you make money. And so they need to be able to know that you're going to get sold and you're going to be marketable, because all that work that they put in ahead of time may never pay off. Which I've heard the horror stories of someone getting an agent and then they couldn't sell the book. And then they wrote another one with agent. They couldn't sell that book. I know someone who, like, their third book, agent, like they've had 3 books agented, and it took 3 books to finally sell.
I've heard that too.
That's scary for the agent if you think about it, because their livelihood is directly related to you.
It is, but I think it's scarier for the author. Imagine, you fight so hard to get an agent. You go through all these endless rounds of querying. You get an offer of representation. You field possible other offers of representation. You pick an agent and you're like, yes, I am one step closer. And then you're on submission, which means that the agent is pitching your book to to editors at publishing houses for months, weeks. It could be a year. I've heard people who are on sub for over a year, just because of, not even depending on the quality of the story, just depending on what the publishing houses are looking for, what the editors are looking for, the time of year it is. Because as I've mentioned before, nobody in publishing works during the summer. Everybody's off playing somewhere. So if you start going on sub right, before the summer, like in June, you may not hear anything until now, like October, November time. So it's a lot of patience. And I think the idea that you could possibly get an agent and just never actually get picked up, it's like so close, but still so far. It's heartbreaking. What are we doing to ourselves? Oh my God. Why are we doing this?
This is the worst field to go into, seriously. We're such masochists.
We really are. But we do it because we love it. The writing, not the querying.
And it really feels like it's based on who's willing to take the most pain. Those are the ones that get published, are the ones that take the most pain, because we stick it out and we haven't given up yet.
I feel like that is...
Go ahead. I was just going to say, which leads me to my final point, which is really deciding what is the number of rejections you're willing to go through.
Because there will come threshold.
Yeah, because there will come a part of the querying process where maybe your book just isn't the right fit right now, and it has nothing to do with your art, but maybe it's just not the time. I mean, I know CJ and I had a previous conversation about okay, say the book that she's querying right now gets agented and sold, and then the next book I'm writing gets picked, like us submitting our previous work to them because we've
Mm.
proven.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean, I don't see, we don't know we don't know how that's taken if you can submit all work. So we're just going to assume we can. We
Well,
don't
one of
know.
the things that you're supposed to ask your agent when you, or your prospective agent, when you actually get them on the phone, when you're talking about an offer, is you ask them, when do we start talking about my next projects? Are you going to be working in this genre still? When would we start looking at other projects? So you definitely want to be talking about that with your agent when you start talking about an offer, especially because a lot of publishing houses are now doing 2 book deals, 3 book deals, and not necessarily
Thank
just
God.
for trilogies or anything like that, but just a couple books in a row. But it can also be bad, and that's a whole other podcast episode, is because you'll get one advance for 2 books, where it used to be you get one advance, one book, one advance, another book. Yeah,
What the hell?
yeah.
Are they doubling the advance then?
No, they're not.
The fuck? We already get only 5 or 10K.
I know. It's a thing that's happening. I've heard about it from various sources. So you definitely want to let your agent know that you have other stories, because obviously the agent wants to form a long-lasting relationship with you as much as you want to form one with them, because it's going to be your business partner basically. So you want them to know, like, hey, I'm not just a one-hit wonder. I have a bunch of books in the works. But you might not want to, talking with your agent, you might not want to let publishing houses know exactly what you have, because you don't want to get ripped off, basically. You want to make the most money from your career that you can.
This is just a reiteration, friends and listeners, that your agent is a relationship. This is a relationship you're making
Mm-hmm.
with another person to build your entire career. And as much as we are desperate to just have one person pick us, I mean, I know we are all fucking desperate. Like, oh my God, you're
Well,
going to pick
pick
me out.
one, anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also have to make sure that it is a relationship that will work. So this is another great time to think about questions you may have when they call you to offer you representation. You just don't want to go into this blind.
Yeah.
Like CJ just said, you want to have questions about future work with them. Are they willing to stay in the genre? Are they willing to jump out of the genre? What is their working style with? What is their editing style? Because a lot of times agents will also be your like first round of editor before it goes to,
Mm-hmm.
be on submission or and to be bought, and then you'll get like your real editor. But they do try to help you and will do some edits with you to make it as polished as it can be for the submission process. So you just want to make sure that it works. And I know that, like I said, we're all desperate, but don't just accept anyone.
Yeah, and if you're curious about what you should be asking a literary agent when you finally do get them on the phone, I've listened to a lot of YouTube videos by the Bookends Literary Agency.
You
The
love them.
Bookends
You
YouTube.
mention them all the
I
time.
do. I took a query writing workshop with one of their agents, and it just changed everything for me in terms of writing queries and synopses. So I highly recommend them. I recommend taking a query writing workshop if you have the means to do so.
Clearly
But
it's
their
working
website,
for
yeah,
you.
I mean, I feel like it really has. So I recommend looking at their YouTube channel to get all sorts of information about what to do with an agent once you finally get them on the phone.
I think I'm actually really happy that we turned our current event podcast into a technical podcast. I think we should do this a couple more times in the future. I think this
Yeah.
is, I feel like I learned a lot. I'm the one trying to educate everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely good to talk about what's happening with querying. It's such a lonely process, it's such a discouraging process. And knowing that there are kind of like secret messages you can figure out and decode to help you along the way is absolutely helpful. And people listen to us, they can share it with their friends and with their friends. So it just helps everybody in the long run become, closer to the careers that we all want as writers.
Exactly. And we want to open up the conversation for all of our listeners. So please make sure you comment down below. We like to talk back. We want to talk about your experience querying. Do you have anything you want to add with these rejections? Have you yourself gone any of these different levels of rejections as well? I mean, I haven't. Clearly, CJ has gone above and beyond that because she's gotten full requests.
And I've also gotten a lot of rejections. Don't forget, there's so many in there still.
But look at this. She's getting the same form rejections and full requests. Yeah. So remember.
No one
But
is immune.
and if you have questions, let us answer some questions too, because the point of this podcast isn't just to like give you guys something fun to listen to. It's also to start the conversation. We want to talk with all of you. We don't want to just be sitting here as in the void into your ear.
Hashtag writers helping writers.
Exactly. And I hope that everyone found this to be helpful. Don't forget as well, our book club for October is Hide by Kirsten White. You still have time to grab a copy, and if you need to buy a copy, use one of our bookshop.org affiliate links below. It doesn't cost anything extra to you. It just gives us a small kickback from Bookshop to help us keep putting on this content for all of you. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, Google, or iHeart, give us a subscribe button. And make sure to answer the question and the poll and the Spotify down below. I believe it's only on the phone version, but tell us what you're thinking. And we will look forward to talking to you guys all next time. Bye, friends.
Bye.